Not a day goes by when China and its behavior don't make the news. This time, Chinese actions have sparked outrage almost 10,000 kilometers away. However, China has openly engaged in arm twisting and discrimination against locals. And the most recent example is of the Chinese supermarket. As calls for boycott grow in Nigeria, it looks like Chinese racism has become a setback for Beijing's relations with Africa.
This visit was prompted by a viral video circulating on social media where Nigerians claimed they were denied entry to the store based on their nationality, sparking widespread outrage. Upon arrival at the location, the security personnel hesitated to open the gate, insisting on receiving authorization from higher authorities. After approximately 10 minutes, access to the compound was granted.
And finally, in Africa, a Chinese supermarket has been accused of racism against locals in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Nigerians were outraged after they were denied entry inside the store for not being of Chinese descent. The West African nation's consumer watchdog has now shut down the Chinese market and summoned its owner. Our next report goes into detail.
Residents in Nigeria's capital Abuja are enraged with the way they've been treated. A Chinese supermarket in Nigeria is at the center of controversy. The shop is located in a building run by the Chinese Chamber of Commerce in the Nigerian capital. The Chinese supermarket has been accused of racism by denying entry to African shoppers. After videos of the supermarket's blatant racism against local Nigerians went viral, the West African nation's consumer protection watchdog closed down the Chinese store. Officials of Nigeria's Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission locked down the Chinese supermarket until further notice. They also summoned the store's owner for investigation. So how did this instance of Chinese racism against Nigerians in their own country surface? It all started earlier this week. A group of Nigerians went to the Chinese Chamber of Commerce to shop from its supermarket. They were all stopped at the entrance by guards who said that people of only Chinese descent were allowed inside. And then the outcry began. Nigerian authorities have refused to reopen the Chinese supermarket. However, the racist attitude by Chinese towards Nigerians and Africans is nothing new. Reports highlight that Chinese social media is full of anti-African content. And despite calls for controlling racism on Chinese social media, Beijing has done almost nothing about it. Chinese racism came into spotlight even before the COVID-19 pandemic. Africans who were living in China became victims of Chinese racism repeatedly. Over the years, reports of Africans being treated unfairly by the Chinese have become far too frequent. It reached a point where governments had to intervene to douse the flames. And instead of facing the crisis, Beijing called the racism incidents a way to create animosity between China and Africa.
I want to say that if there are people who want to seize on an incident to exaggerate matters and sow discord in China's relations with African countries, that this is a doomed, futile effort. China and Africa have weathered many storms, and the cooperation has been successful and win-win. How relations are between China and Africa, and whether or not cooperation is good, African countries and the people of Africa know in their hearts exactly how things stand.
China's presence in Africa, particularly in Nigeria, remains massive. There are at least 10,000 Chinese living in Nigeria. And Beijing is credited for opening major ports and infrastructure projects in Abuja.
Somewhere in 2018, an IT expert who was working for the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa noticed that there were some suspicious activities with the servers of the African Union. Yes. First of all, he noticed that some information were heavily being transferred from Addis Ababa all the way to Shanghai, China. You know, these were information about migrants, information about each African country. As you know, the African Union is a collective of all the African countries that signed up for this initiative. Now, the people who constructed this particular building are the ones who installed the servers. Now, China was giving an eye to the activities of Africa without permission. China was spying on Africa without permission. And they didn't even tell Africans that they were spying on them. Of course, you can't tell someone I'm spying on you. What raised suspicion is why were they transferring such huge amount of data from Africa to Shanghai? Let's keep that at stake right now. Let's put it somewhere. Let's go all the way to Nigeria. Something is happening in Nigeria, something very suspicious, you know. The Chinese are always very, very suspicious with their activities. Remember the case with Huawei in, where is it? USA. Huawei was doing some malicious activities without the permission of the users. It had some program on its devices that was recording people and their conversation and sending it back to Huawei headquarters in China. Now in Nigeria, as I said, Nigeria has welcomed the Chinese. The Chinese have built many things. They've built structures. They've built this and that. But something is happening, something that Africans don't like. Chinese are being racist to Africans. And the type of racism is this. It's a kind of apartheid. Remember apartheid? No vehicle, no houses, no areas were allowed to Africans. Now, the Chinese have built this mall, as you've heard, and in this mall, Africans can't get into this mall. The only people who can get into that mall are Chinese people. I'm not certain if other foreigners can get in, but what I know is Africans can't get in. It's like you have your own room in your house and you have a guest and they don't allow you into that room. It raises suspicion. Given the history of China and how it does its own malicious things, it has raised suspicion about what it is doing in this mall that it does not want Africans to see. You know, the information that was being transferred from Addis Ababa to Shanghai was very, very important information. You know, the information that Huawei was recording on people's phones. I can't be talking, but my phone is recording me and sending this information to China, you know. Now, the government of Nigeria is not happy about this. And they've made an example of this. They came and they decided, we want to close this mall. We close this mall, and then you are going to be answerable to some of these things that you do. The owner of this mall was called out, but she didn't appear. She was called out, she didn't appear, she ran away, which even makes it more suspicious. Why are you running away? And you've been not allowing Africans to come in. Now, we can't talk all that. I want us to watch this video, continue watching this video. Listen to how this gentleman is going to explain the operations of the Chinese and why the government of Nigeria has decided to take this specific action. And then I'll give you my thoughts towards the end of the video, where we will have a critical analysis. Let's dive in.
What came to mind when you saw this matter, as well as the swift reaction of government?
All right. The first thing is one, it's a good place to commend the power of social media.
Right.
As a complementary appendage to the regular media. That's one. I mean, for those advocating that social media should be banned or regulated. I mean, this is a plus, you know, because it's a good one. And I mean, correcting social ills. And so that's one part. But the second part is when the news actually came, everybody was like, in our own country, like, really, can something like this happen? So, and another thing I heard from a friend was that, can this happen in their own country? But let's look at the position of the law and what the law says. If you look at Section 42 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, it says that no Nigerian shall be discriminated against under any circumstance.
Right.
Now, so when you have a shop or an outlet and you claim that Nigerians cannot come in because it's strictly a Chinese thing, then that even raises some level of suspicion. If you look at it, first off, you can't stop Nigerians from going into any shop. Then you claim you sell something. They may have something they want to buy. They don't have to be Chinese to patronize you. That's one. Any national can come. Any ethnic group can actually come in and check out what you sell. Right. They don't even have to buy.
Right.
They can just look, people window shop. And then if you look at other places all over the world, I mean, we know of Chinatown in New York, and people go there. There's nothing like this kind of restriction. So why this? Why Nigeria? What exactly is going on? So the suspicion here is, what are you selling? That
What
the
are you
average
hiding?
person cannot see, cannot view. Now, so that is enough for people to start looking at in your direction that, come, there's more to what you're doing. There's more to you stopping people than what we can see. And thank goodness this came on. And also we have to commend the agency, the FCCPC. The swift reaction, you know, that's not just locking up the place now, but also calling them forward to come for some form of interview. And they have also hinted that they may face some tribunal in respect of that action. I think that's commendable, but we will also have to wait for the outcome and see how far this...
Because there are reports, even in the papers this morning, that the owner of that business, supermarket has fled.
So that raises more suspicion. And you know, if going by the law now, if you look at the Consumer Protection Council's Act, Section 2, subsection I, it says that this agency has the powers to look at any obnoxious or discriminatory act against consumers. And they can actually take it up, take up the person, like the owners of the business, like they have done, they've rightly done, and then also prosecute them where necessary.
Right.
Well, so do you not think there is need for us to look into it deeply? Because we had the issue of KFC discriminating a Nigerian person with disabilities, and also we're having Chinese. Is it only Nigerians that are not allowed into their business center, or Africans, or any other person other than Nigeria? So yeah, exactly. So does this speak to the fact that Nigerians are being persecuted not only outside of the country? Now the British government is saying that they are going to repatriate, send what do they call them? Migrants, asylum seekers to Rwanda, and said no going back, through the boats and all of that. So is it about the Nigerian people or the African people as against, their own selves, right, even on their own soil? So if they are feeling this, what about in other countries as, China? All
right, let's contextualize it, because this happened in Nigeria, then we might have to just limit it
to Nigeria.
I don't know about other nationals. What we saw was a video by the person who posted it, and he just said Nigerians were not allowed. And then the security personnel at the entrance of the supermarket actually said, in fact, they said that from the report that they made a law, or they gave them a directive from the beginning of 2024 that no Nigerian should be allowed. That in itself is discriminatory. This is Nigeria. All right. And then even if it was abroad, you cannot label any person, any national, and say that this person should not, certain nationalities should not come and patronize you, or should not come into your supermarket. As long as you're open for business, anybody can come into that place. I talked about window shopping. It's not even buying now. Even if I go there today, go there tomorrow, and come back next tomorrow, as long as I have not stolen, I'm not a security threat to you, you can't stop me from coming in. That's even abroad. Now, coming home in my own country, in my own space, then somebody came from somewhere. And most of these people, no disrespect to them, some of those people, by the time you actually touchlight them, you find out that they don't even have the necessary permits to stay or to even operate this business in the first place. Now we learned from what you said that the person has fled. Why flee? What is pursuing you? If we go scriptural, it says, it's only the wicked who runs when
no man is pursuing.
Nobody has pursued them. They've only asked them to come forward and explain themselves. Now, so this is discriminatory in all regards. Then back to your question, even if it's abroad, you can't do that. And the one you alluded to, the Rwanda thing, you saw what happened last week. The House actually, literally threw out the bill, though they're still on it, but it's not going to fly. And they felt that's a slap on, the administration of Rishi Sunak, because I mean, how can you just pack everybody and go and throw them in one country, assuming that it's discriminatory, and I mean that the provisions of the law, the UN charters that actually oppose such laws. So it's obnoxious, and it wouldn't be allowed to fly. So, but as far as this is concerned, this supermarket issue, stopping Nigerians from coming in, it's obnoxious, it's every inch wrong. And it will not be tolerated, it will not be allowed, not in this space.
Right, interesting. But there's also the aspect of charity begins at home. And how you treat your citizens also gives room for others to understand how they should treat them as well. And so I am trying for us to perhaps move back a bit how we have treated ourselves as a people. Because sometimes we treat these persons who have a different color better than we treat ourselves. We give them a better pay sometimes than those who are the same, our own people. And then when certain persons perhaps go outside the country, now their accents have changed, we seem to embrace them better. No, perhaps we need to talk about these things. So are we not in a way actually giving these persons room to discriminate against us because they see how we treat ourselves?
Well, I want to align with your position. We haven't also been fair to ourselves. I think the issue of the eatery that he mentioned earlier, if you look at it, there were all Nigerians involved.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you looked at a fellow Nigerian who is living with disability, and you're stopping the person from coming in. Yeah. Thank goodness also, I mean, the reaction was fine. Immediate. So I think one of the things we also have to commend lately is the fact that I think people are becoming more aware of their rights and the position of the law. And that's why you find all these swift reactions to issues like this. Now, but in all fairness, like you said, we also haven't been fair to ourselves. We've had instances where, the dignity of the Nigerian has been trampled in several dimensions by Nigerians. So it's easier for somebody who is not a part of you to just look at it that if you treat yourself like that, then it doesn't cost me anything to follow suit or even, raise my own bar and treat you in a worse situation, to treat you worse. Yeah. Now, so I think that's what has happened here. But also, we also have to recognize the fact that people are becoming aware of their rights, people are becoming aware of their positions, and even agencies are swift now at curtailing these social ills. So I think those days are gone, and then we're moving forward. I'm an incurable optimist. I pick things like this, and I look at it, and for all you care also, some other agencies will look at the swift reaction of the FCCPC and also start doing things like this. Sometimes, it's contagious. People may not really know what to do in circumstances like this. So now you know that if a foreigner comes and does something like this or put up some obnoxious act, then you can actually go against them. There's this general inferiority complex that Nigerians have. You just see, like you said, people go abroad. I've seen somebody, I remember a Nigerian footballer who went to Italy and came back with serious accent, not British accent. And I'm like, guys,
you went to Italy?
So it's just a cultural thing, but at the same time, that does not give room for anybody to discriminate. It's a fundamental right. Nobody should discriminate against any Nigerian under any circumstance. Nobody should prevent you from moving into something. Like I said, I can go to the shop as many times as possible. I might be thinking in my mind that maybe one day I'll have the funds to buy it, but that shouldn't stop,
from walking in and looking at whatever that object is.
I might be just psyching myself up.
Very good.
No matter the amount of this thing, one
day I will buy you.
Well, people are not even scared of what they eat because during the COVID-19 time, there was a report that actually started with a phrase like, the Chinese eat anything that flies in the sky except aeroplane. They eat anything that has 4 legs except table. So I'm not sure what kind of appetites Nigerians would definitely have. But there are so many people who are adventurous when it comes to cuisines. But where I'm going is China is Nigeria's largest trading partner in 2023 with a total trade value of 7.49 trillion naira in the fourth quarter of 2021. So they accounted for about 28% of Nigeria's total import value. So what do you think Nigerians and the Nigerian government can do because if we say we should boycott their product, boycott their businesses and all of that, do you think we will be hurting ourselves?
First off, the levels to this thing. It's you don't go all out against a country. It's just an individual that has done this thing, and the necessary agency has acted in line with the position of the law. So what is necessary here has been done. Now, so it's not China that's done anything wrong. It's a Chinese that has done something wrong here. So you face who has done the wrong, then that is not enough.
Now it depends on how their own government also reacts.
It's not enough to cause any diplomatic strain. I know the Chinese government. I don't think we will have a situation where this will spiral into some diplomatic row. No, they will definitely. I mean, if a Nigerian citizen goes abroad and does something wrong, that doesn't mean it's Nigeria that has done. It's a Nigerian. He's not representing Nigeria with the crime. Right. And I think that is what has played out here. And it's not enough to boycott. I think before we go 1-2 steps, things will be resolved diplomatically and everything will be fine. But this is good, and it also sends a signal to people who may want to come up with something funny in future. You know that this is a land where those days of anything goes are gone. You cannot discriminate against Nigerians. You cannot bring in things that are contrary to what we believe or how we live our lives.
So you think the message has been passed by
something that I feel is not being given proper attention that it deserves. Yeah. In Africa, we are so much welcoming. We don't segregate. We are not racist. We welcome everyone. However, we have a problem. Recently in Nigeria, and I'm told that this is a problem that has always been there, The Chinese, as you know, they came to Africa and they have really done nice things. They have brought roads, they have built bridges, they have built hospitals, they have built schools. All these are good things that these people have done, And so, as a way of courtesy, to say thank you, to appreciate what they have done, Africans, in collaboration with our leaders, we have established a ground for the Chinese where they can come, they can do business, they can thrive, they can have their family, they can do agriculture, they can farm, all these, Now, you normally hear of certain towns such as Chinatown, Koreatown. Mostly it's always Chinatown. We have Chinatown in USA. We have Chinatown in Australia. Why do we have Chinatown in a country that is not China? It's because they've come together. They've created a society within another country of the Chinese. By all means, that's not a problem. It's not a problem at all. The problem comes when it comes to the point of entitlement. Entitlement is being a problem with the Chinese people. Now, the Chinese have built this mall in Nigeria, West Africa. They've built this mall, and Nigeria is a population of 200 million. I think it's the highest in Africa. That small country has 200 million people plus humans living in that small country, plus the Chinese, Now, the Chinese have come, they've established this mall, and they're being racist towards people of that own country. They are racist towards the natives. This specific mall does not allow Africans to get inside. Yes, a mall in Africa does not allow Africans to come in. It's so absurd, so ironical. You can't even imagine such thing. It's like me welcoming someone into my own house. They take a space and they say, I can't enter that room and it's my house. No, they can't do such a thing, You cannot think of such, There's no way you build a mall or you build anything unless something which is belonging to a family, a small property like a home, is when you can say such things. But a mall is a public structure. A mall is where people do shopping, you know. Here in Kenya, we have one called China Square. This China Square, it's run by the Chinese. But I still feel like there's still some form of racism. And they are using Africans to achieve this. I'm saying this because you can go to China Square even right now. You who is watching, you can go to China Square. It's just a few kilometers from where I live. This specific mall is owned by the Chinese. And first of all, Africans were so angry, Africans in Kenya, they were so angry that they demonstrated against the Chinese. They said, China must go, because they came and they established cheap business, they established cheap products. So instead of Africans going to buy from those Africans, they are now going to buy to China, China Square. By no means, by no problem. There is no problem with that. Even myself, I'll go where there is the same product, but at a lower price. The same product at a lower price. I'll go there. That's obvious. The racism comes in when an African is purchasing something and they want to leave. The kind of search they conduct on you, is absurd. It's mind-blowing. You can never imagine an African being subjected to such activity of such. You might think that he has stolen, but no, he's just bought something and he's leaving. Now, the reason why I'm saying it's racism, those other malls which belongs to Africans, we don't get such kind of harassment while leaving after shopping. We don't get that. In China Square, you find like 20 security guards, 20 of them waiting for you by the gate, and they're searching you thoroughly. Believe me when I say thoroughly. And it's an African who's just buying from the Chinese shop. You know, China has some problems that it has to deal with. You know, the issue of entitlement. We understand that they have done some development. They have helped us do this and that, you know. But you just can't go somewhere and be racist to those people. Just because you give them something to help them does not make you fully entitled to them. Does not make everything that belongs to them yours. It's not right. It's like me living here, going to China, building my own home. Not home. Home is different. A shop, a public structure. And I'm saying blacks only. No. I will be chased away out of China. The very day I will be chased away. But Africans, we are so lenient in a way that we allow such things. When an African comes and complains, we don't allow them because somebody oiled our pockets. The problem with Nigeria the other day, as you've seen from the video, is a problem that has always been there. Nigerians have been complaining. Now the complaints were getting too much. And now they decided, no, we have to do something about this. The Chinese people have done wrong things to Africans. This is not the first time. The other day, a Chinese was fighting an African. The other day here in Kenya, yes, a Chinese was beating a woman. The other day in China, a South African lady was beaten badly by a Chinese because she was a teacher and I think she asked for a salary, something like that. The Chinese disrespect Africans, but not all Chinese. I think African leaders should do something about this. This enmity that exists should be dealt with. It should be removed. It shouldn't exist at all. African leaders should act. The problem with Nigeria is just not a single problem. There are multiple all over the continent. An African cannot survive in China the same way a Chinese survives in Africa. When they come to Africa, they still feel like they own us. No, nobody owns Africa. Africa belongs to Africa. Yes, Africa belongs to Africa. And it's high time we stand up and speak about this. Those people who are sitting somewhere and being given money to silence themselves. They're forgetting one thing, that maybe it is their child who might face these problems in the future. You know, if you go into someone's home, abide by their rules. If you go to Rome, be a Roman, you know. Don't create your own rules over there. Now, the issue of the Chinese is an issue that many Africans have complained, and we are hoping that they'll act and they'll stop this. We accept and we agree with all the benefits you provide, but there should exist a boundary. A boundary should exist. Don't abuse Africans. Don't do that. You know who I pity the most? I pity the most that African who is always worshipping white skin. That African who is dying to leave Africa, to go all the way to China. We have some very nice countries people can visit, friendly countries. But China's proven many times it doesn't like black people. I'm not talking about China. I'm speaking about the evidence that's there. You know, the government should set rules that apply to foreigners. You know, there's no way you can come to a country and practice racism. That's not even racism, that's apartheid. Apartheid, segregation based on skin color, that's apartheid. It would be okay if you practice apartheid in your country, but not in Africa. You shouldn't do it in Africa. No, I don't think Africans will accept this. There are so many bad cases that might happen from this. Remember what happened in South Africa the other day with the Nigerians. I don't want to call that name, but remember what happened the other day. The Nigerians retaliated, you know. What do you think would happen with a foreigner who is very far, much away? What do you think will happen? Africa belongs to Africa, and the Chinese who are being racist should understand this. You should just respect Africans and respect our sovereignty, respect our cultures, respect this is our land. This is an African land. This is not Hong Kong or some Shanghai. No. This is Africa. Nigeria. That's Africa. Respect them. Respect them. You get me? If I were... The other day, Chinese was also insulting the president of Kenya. If I would go to China and insult Xi Jinping, do you know what would have happened? You would never hear of me again. But here, Chinese can come, do their wrong things, and walk away free. They come here, some of them might kill our elephants. Yes, kill elephants. You know, elephant has those white things which the tusks, yes. They kill the elephants, they throw away the meat. They only take those two things, just those two. And they take it all the way to Hong Kong. They can't kill an elephant in Hong Kong, but they come here in Africa, kill an African elephant and take it over there. And this thing is being allowed to happen by the African leaders, puppets. That's the correct name to call them, puppets. And I think Africans, it's time we act in a diplomatic way. I believe in diplomacy, yes. Africans should stand up and report any cases of injustices, yes. And you Chinese, respect Africans. Just, that's the way it goes. It's the law of the land. Respect people. Yes. That's all, guys. If you enjoy watching my videos, kindly subscribe to the channel. Give me a super thanks and become a member to this channel. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, share. Do everything you can. Everything positive. See you in the next one.